Okay, guys, we are going to dive right in. I am here with Nicole Culver, and I would actually like Nicole to kind of give us just an introduction about her site and where she's kind of taken her business. How are you,
Yeah,
Nicole?
I'm good. How are you? Excited to be with you today.
Thanks so much. So tell us a little bit about your business.
So, I'm Nicole. I help bloggers, mostly food bloggers, that's my niche, really turn their blogs into their business. And my whole thing is I focus on working at what you're really good at with, which isn't necessarily always online. I talk about working in your community and getting offline before then you go and build your business online. So I've been doing this for about a year. I also have a snack company, Blissful Eats, which I've been doing for 5 years. I run it from my house. Although the food isn't made at our house, it's made at our manufacturer, but I do it with my husband and we really enjoy working together. I also am a stay at home mom like you are of two girls, 4 and almost 2.
Yes. And your previous profession before you turned full-time stay-home mom and full-time blogger was the same as mine. So yeah.
Yes, I was a 4th grade special ed teacher. I taught in Queens for the Department of Ed in New York City, and I left teaching after 5 years and I started Blissful Eats.
Okay, perfect. Now, we actually have met. We did a podcast together on your podcast, and we also did the Food Entrepreneur Summit. Can you tell everybody a little bit more about the Food Entrepreneur Summit? Because I hadn't heard of it till this just now. So tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so the Food Entrepreneur Summit is something that I came up with because I felt like there was a need for food bloggers, one, to really come together in a community and be able to, one, learn from each other, and then really connect with each other and have a place to be able to ask questions. Because I think that beyond individual relationships, there's no place to really connect with people you look up to, maybe someone that has been virtually mentoring you, and say like, how did you do this? Can you teach me? And then can I ask you questions? So I was actually at a conference, which was my first conference I had ever gone to because I have a 4-year-old and a almost 2-year-old. So I haven't ever left them to go to a conference. And when I was sitting in the room, I was just really moved by the connections people were making and the ability to listen to a speaker talk and then for them to actually give their time after and stand up at the front of the room or the back of the room, wherever they were, and take questions from people. And that was so, so powerful for me that I was so moved to do my own virtual summit. So people didn't have to go anywhere. They could do it from their couch or their bed and watch these videos on their own time and then get in a group and say, okay, now I have a question about this.
Yes, I love the fact that you have that ability to be able to have the questions asked afterwards and tagging people. And the great thing was that it was all video, but it was also something that you were able to listen to. Because I'm like a big person that loves to listen to podcasts. I'm a little obsessed. Just because we're driving or we're cleaning or whatever we're doing, it's easier to listen to. And I was able to do that with the videos that you had through Food Entrepreneur Summit. Now, the cart has closed on Food Entrepreneur Summit, but you also still have the videos available for purchase. Is that right or no?
Yes. Yeah. So what I decided to do was this year I decided to do a self-study version where you can still get the videos, get the PDF downloads, and get the MP3s for each class. And you can go through it really on your own time. Now, you're not getting the live component of being able to ask questions, but the videos were so, so valuable that I really felt like, okay, I can't completely take this off now.
Right. And you also have a Facebook group that isn't necessarily part of Food Entrepreneur Summit, but it's kind of like a closed Facebook group for your community of podcasts.
Yes. Yeah. So I have the Blissful Bites community, and it's basically where I've hosted free challenges and I do live videos in there similar to your community. And then every time I release a podcast, if the person is in the community, then I give them a chance to say hi to the podcast guest, I really love that aspect of it.
Yes. No, that's awesome. Anytime I can have that interaction with someone afterwards, it just makes it a much more valuable experience, I think, for both of us, because as someone that's necessarily speaking, you get to ask questions and you get kind of pushed and challenged to think, okay, this is the way this person is thinking about it, and someone else may not have thought of it that way. And I think as a teacher, we kind of have that aspect, that mindset of like trying to figure out different ways to teach. Right? For
Yes,
sure.
yes.
One of the things that I actually found that you have for my audience is a download that they're actually able to get. And it's kind of what we wanted to talk about today, was the whole idea of being able to pivot. And you've done this really, really well. Would you talk a little bit about how you felt like you pivoted and what you kind of weighed in as factors in order to do it?
Yeah. So a year ago at this point, I didn't even have this business at all. I actually launched the podcast, the Blissful Bites podcast, on February 1st, 2016. So at the time we're recording, I didn't even have the podcast a year ago. And what happened was I was a health coach. I went to the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, and I have Blissful Eats, my snack company. But that is kind of like a self-sustaining business. Everything that comes out of it goes back into it. And I wanted to figure out another way to be able to support my family and to contribute to the income, because our goal was for my husband to work with Blissful Eats full time and not go into his job in New York City anymore. He wasn't fulfilled. It wasn't something he was passionate about. It was paying the bills, obviously. So I was doing health coaching, and I love health and fitness. I love health and wellness, but it wasn't something I felt like was really my calling. And when I started Blissful Eats, I was always looking for different ways to find out other women entrepreneur stories. Like when I would go to read Lara Bar and how they started, I just wanted to know, like, what is the behind the scenes? Because it's really hard to start a food business and you don't hear about the steps that it takes. So when I started, I was like, one day I'm going to write a book. One day I'm going to do something. And then at the end of 2015, I was like, what am I waiting for? I need to start a podcast. I felt like that was not an oversaturated industry. It just so happens I got an email from Jenna Wolf's, from the Today Show, her PR person, and they wanted to be on my blog, which I was like, why do you want, no one reads my blog. Why do you want to be on my blog? So I wrote back and I said, yes, I'm going to be doing a podcast. And I had no plans to start the podcast at this point, but it propelled me because I was like, barely anyone is reading my blog. I had like a couple thousand page views a month, nothing major. Why would I put this great interview? Because I had followed her for a long time. I really loved her and was inspired by her. So it kicked my podcast into gear. So I started the Blissful Bites podcast because I reached out to all the contacts I've had over years, friends I've made, blogger friendships I had. Even though no one was really reading my blog, I still had made great friendships over the years. So what I didn't know was being a genuine friend paid off, even though I didn't intend for it to pay off. And I'm sure you have similar results. So I started the podcast February 1st. I started this podcast launch team and just really said, I want to share stories of people and companies you love. And I'm going to be the way to do that. So I kicked it off February 1st. I reached 20K downloads within 6 weeks. It was like very crazy because again, had no one really reading my blog, so I was kind of surprised by that. And it launched me into just wanting to help more. And I've had a lot of business knowledge and training from running a small food company. So then it kind of got my wheels turning, and people started coming to me and being like, how did you do this? I want to know more. So fast forward, I decided health coaching, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. I was making a couple $100s a month. There was not really any money in there for me, because I wasn't passionate and I wasn't really working the business. I'll say that. So went to Vegas, went to this conference, had the idea pop in my head for the food summit, came home, made it go live within 6 weeks. And that was the first sale of the food summit in May, was the first time I had ever sold anything. And it ended up profiting just above 5 figures, which I was like, oh, what? Like, how did that happen? So I kind of just really figured out how to listen to my audience. That doing that first food summit made me realize, like, okay, there's a need here. And I was able to go through that Facebook group, which I didn't even realize, and mine for everything that people were looking for and having trouble with. And from there, my business just really kicked off and launched, and it's been a crazy ride ever since. I did the second food summit. We just ended it last week, and I had just about 200 people participate between the self-study and the full community, and it's been a crazy year. But I think the bottom line is, when you're passionate about something, when you really work for it and you listen to that your core group of people and meet their needs, then you can have a successful business from there.
I totally agree. One of my first episodes for my podcast was about the power of purpose. And I think it goes back to that whole idea of passion. Like, you have to be passionate and have to know your calling. And I think when I looked at your download that you're actually offering to my audience today, it talk a little bit about that download for us and what it entails.
So what I feel like is that missing piece, which I know that I feel like we get along because we have a lot of the same beliefs and values, and we know what it takes to actually build a business online. And something that I had been noticing that I felt like a lot of people weren't talking about is that it's not easy to build an online business if you have no one you're talking to and you don't have this audience. So while you're building an online business, what can you do in the meantime so you're not like completely miserable and you can generate money? So the profit workbook takes you through what products, skills, and services can you actually offer now to maybe your local community, and how can you use your expertise to do things like get one-on-one clients or go to a local moms group if that's your target and offer services to them. So it's about making money now while building your online audience, basically.
I absolutely love that, because I think that is one of the questions that I routinely see in all different types of Facebook groups is, when did you start making money? I'm 6 months into this. I'm a year into this. I'm 2 years into this. Like, where can I go about monetizing this? And routinely people, when they think of blogging, they think of ads, sponsored posts, and affiliates. It doesn't go outside of that. Like, we get stuck right there for some reason. And I love that you push the envelope and have them look into their community, doing one-on-ones, doing things that aren't necessarily the norm, but they're things that they can take action on right now to get some money into the back end of it.
Yeah. And I think it's like a how bad do you want it kind of thing, because if you just want to, and this may sound a little harsh, but if you just want to sit behind your computer screen and sit and wait until your audience gets bigger to have a product that you can push and you can make a couple dollars per person, then that's fine. But if you really want to make it work, you have to get outside and put yourself out there, get out of your comfort zone, make some phone calls, get meetings with people, and offer some type of service that you can fill a need and not just sit behind your computer screen and wait.
Yes. No, I totally agree. I think when we talk about different types of personalities, there's always the people that kind of sit on the sideline and wait for things. And then there's those that are go-getters and don't need to be held by the hand, and they can be given minimal instruction, and they're going to take that minimal instruction and they're going to turn it into their own thing. I think I've definitely found that with my course working with brands, is that I have those students that just kind of sit there, and then I have those that take the information and they run with it. It's unbelievable the things that they've been able to do.
Yeah. And I think that's a little bit hard when you have an online course or something, because you do see those go-getters, and then you see the other people that maybe say, or even just in Facebook groups, because I'm not referring to one person, but like, well, you didn't tell me to do that or something like that. And you're like, okay. Okay, I don't really know what to say to you because no one told me what to do either, and I think that's the interesting portion of it.
Yes, it's definitely a totally different mindset, I think, in order to be successful and be able to move forward. But the idea that you kind of brought into my head is on that, the workbook that you have, it talks about your previous professions. And for me, that's where my pivot was. And like, that's when I finally realized, when I got back to teaching, I took my two loves, which when I was a teacher, I loved little kids. But for me, it wasn't about that. I was a reading specialist. So I actually worked with my teachers constantly. I was always in their classrooms, co-teaching with them and teaching them different strategies to use. So I missed that side of things and being able to now apply that. It's crazy. It's a twofold, and being able to combine both passions.
Yeah, yeah. And that was also for me because for years I spent running away from my teaching background because I was like, I don't want to be a teacher. I don't want to be a teacher. But I spent my whole life, like literally I was one of those people when I was a little girl, I was playing school. I would say, I want to be a teacher. And then I quit and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I ran from it so much. And then I don't know at what point it clicked for me because I realized, no, this is who I am. I am a teacher. I'm just teaching different people and other things. And I think the reason why it works so well for us is because when you're a teacher, you just know how to break things down. You know how to make those little actionable step-by-step lessons that maybe the next person doesn't know how to break it down that much because they don't have that teacher training. So once I embraced the teacher and went back to my roots, that was when I really felt like I came into my own.
Did you feel almost as if people knew that you were a teacher and kind of came to you and asked questions? It was almost like they probably sought you out, right?
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I kept hearing from my podcast because I do these Fast Friday episodes where they're usually less than 10 minutes. They're usually 3, 5, 7 minutes where I just give like one actionable tip, and they're my most downloaded episodes, and I didn't ever expect that to be because it was like, oh, I'll add a third episode a week. I'll just talk about one thing I've done. And that was the feedback I kept getting, is that they're so actionable and that you really break things down in a way that I can understand it.
Yes. That for sure is what I end up hearing a lot of times. It's because they do come to us with so many different questions, and it's because we're able to figure out a different way to say it to one person than we say it to another so that they understand it.
Right.
Yes, I love that. So you also talk about, with Food Entrepreneur Summit, you talked about being able to collaborate with people and getting to network with people. Mm-hmm. Where, when you were starting out, did you find those types of people? Because I think a lot of people in my audience kind of are like, well, how do I find them? I do feel like I'm kind of isolated here just behind the computer screen.
Yeah, so it's such a hard question because I had been blogging for so many years, maybe 8 years or something. And when I first started blogging, I had someone reach out to me. Her name is Kelly Alexa. She was on my podcast. She's the founder of Fitfluential. It's a online network basically. And it was like, seriously, I was like the first email she ever had sent when she was approaching people to be part of this network. And through this network, I met so many people because it was just a small group of core bloggers at that point. So I developed a lot of friendships online that way, and those are people who I've kept up with. And then when you started, when you would go to other people's websites and you would comment, and that's just how I know it's still like a tactic for now, but it wasn't even really a tactic then. You were just doing that to make friendships. So like Jessica from How Sweet Eats, she was like one of the first blogs I had ever found. And it was back when she had just started. Her photography was horrible like mine, but I never got better. And now she's like a super major entrepreneur blogger and does amazing, amazing things. But I've known her for like 8 years. So it's been relationships where I've put in the time and shown like, okay, you mean something to me almost. And they were willing to just be a part of what I was starting. So I think now it's like Facebook groups. I think that's what you look for. But I think it's just really engaging and being genuine and treating people online how you would offline.
Yes. Going that extra mile and answering the extra question or interacting and giving them an extra share. Mm-hmm. I think, so I had, when I was teaching a lot, before I left teaching, there was a teacher that had started a blog. She knew what I did. She asked me all sorts of questions. She started her site. And that was one of the things she asked me was, well, I'm so new. Like, I can kind of hang out with you, but I feel like I can't because you've been around so long and you do all these different things. It's intimidating. And my response to her was, find those that are similar to you on Twitter, on Pinterest, and you share their content. And that's how you will end up growing. one of the things that was really popular, and they're still around, but not quite as popular as they used to be, are those link parties. Did you ever link up your...
Yeah, yes. I didn't do it a lot, but I definitely did like the Friday link ups or yes, yes. And it's so funny to think about how long ago that was. And again, I used to just have this blog called Making Good Choices, which, totally makes me cringe. Now I just have my name as my website, but oh my goodness. And it was all about health, wellness, and fitness. So again, now I'm still like working through getting that stuff off because it doesn't fit with who I am anymore. But yeah, it's so funny to see how like full circle it comes.
So that was interesting that you just said about trying to get it off. Why would you try to get it off? Explain what you mean by that.
So something I'm really working with, which is like, and done is better than perfect. So when I was making this pivot, I wasn't spending a whole lot of money on like the most fancy tools or having like a super fancy designer come in and redo my whole site. I made tweaks so it could work, but that wasn't where I was spending the majority of my time. So now I'm really figuring out my positioning. And when you come to my site, you shouldn't be seeing a recipe tag at the top of my website because that doesn't fit with my positioning right now. I don't want someone to come to my site and look at like a not that great recipe. That's not who I am, and that's not who I'm trying to be. It is part of my past, so I'm not going to go and scrub everything from my site, but it shouldn't be like the first thing that hits you when you go to NicoleCulverblog.com.
Yes. No, and that totally makes sense. So now you have NicoleCulver.com. Do you also have BlissfulBites.com?
I don't have, so I actually do own the URL, but I don't have anything there. But I do have my snack company website, which is blissful-eats.com.
Okay. All right. Very good. Yes. So when I made my pivot, I kept the Melrose family because it's also part of what I preach is being able to work with brands and how I've gone about doing it. And I still continue to do that. So that is my site for people to be able to look back and kind of have like an idea of how to go about doing that. But I totally understand because there were a time when I did, we talk about how as we grow as people, our interests grow. So it may not be the same topics that we started with. And I think that pivot, whether it's to a totally different side of things, like we kind of did with like the teaching and the coaching and the courses, or if it's a different niche, that's okay. And I think it's so important for people, I think, to realize that because we do grow.
Yeah. And I think that it's not, like I said, my website isn't perfect, but the lesson I would want people to take from that is like, don't put the cart before the horse and build out a whole new website and make everything perfect and fancy and then expect the people to come. Make sure the people are coming first and then you can make tweaks because I don't think that things need to be perfect on your website. People are going to trust you as long as you're putting out the good content and showing that you are who you are. You don't have to worry about having the new fancy latest website with the best fonts.
Yes. No, I totally agree. So one of the things that I always ask my guests are what your projections are for 2017. What do you think is new or going to be like up and coming and the big thing for 2017?
Oh my goodness.
I love putting people on the spot.
Oh, yes. So I think that live is just the way to go. And I think that helping people along is, I don't want to say the way of the future because I know that we both put a lot into live video and live interaction, but I almost think it's like going back to grassroots marketing and showing people that you care and that there's a person behind the computer screen. So I'm going beyond just email marketing and reaching out to people who have shown interest and reach out to me. So if you email me, I'm going to email you back. That is a priority to me. And I'm going to make you a personalized video if you have a question. So I think just showing again, and I don't want that seemed like I'm reaching out to cold people to join my programs because that's not what it's about. But it's just about like making it more of a personalized story for each person and showing like I know you're a person. I know you have needs and wants and I'm going to help address them. And then the other side of it is live programs and live courses and just not doing away with, but I think the DIY is not as lucrative as the live programs.
Yes. No, I definitely agree with those for sure. I've seen tons of results because of being able to do Facebook Live, because it does put a face and a personality with a name. And I think it's important when you're looking for programs and looking for people to teach you that if you don't like their teaching style, you're not going to learn. They're just going to annoy you. So it's really about putting a name to a face and getting it out there. So
yeah. And something that my mentor, Todd Herman, just told me about, which I'll share with your audience because I think it's an amazing, amazing free tool. So right now I have my Blogger to Business support group, which is a membership style group, and I've gotten some questions about it. So instead of just writing back a generic email message, I have been using Viewed It, which is viewedit.com. And what you can do is you can actually record your screen. You can record a tab, or you can record just you and send like a video. Hey, Jenny, I know you have this question. I'm going to just show you how I would answer this question and what my program is all about. And you come up as a little circle on the video. So it's your face and the screen, and you send them a link. So when I get emails about it, that's what I've been doing, just making personalized little videos to answer their questions. And I don't want to say the results, because I think it makes it less personal, but people really like it and have said, you've made my day, because I took the time to answer a question and it's actually a personalized answer as opposed to just here's a generic answer.
Oh, I love that. I will be sure to put that in the show notes so that it's linked right to it.
Yeah.
Now, you all can go to jennymelrose.com /podcast 5 and get the download from Nicole that is going to be her profit workbook. It is amazing, and you're definitely going to want to do that. Nicole, where else can they find you? Where's like your number 3 top places to find you?
So I would say the first place is the Blissful Bites community on Facebook, and then my blog, NicoleCulverblog.com. And then Facebook is definitely the place I spend the most time in that group. But then I'm also on Instagram at Nicole Culver.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I know that my audience will going to get a ton of information from you, and the download they're going to love.
Thank you so much. I've really had so much fun with you, and I can't wait to meet the rest of your audience.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Bye.